Okay, good evening. We're going to start tonight's meeting with, excuse me, sorry, the offering of the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Brandon McCullough. All please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. McCullough. Welcome, everybody, to the February 13th, 2023 study session of the Livonia City Council. This meeting will set the agenda for the 1963rd regular meeting, which is a voting meeting that will take place on Monday, February 27th of 2023. This is a study meeting. No votes will be taken this evening, although council members will offer a variety of motions. Those can be an approving, a denying, or a referral to a committee for further study. Those items and motions will carry over to the regular meeting of February 27th, where they will be officially voted on. At this time, the council has set aside 30 minutes for audience communication for items that are not on the agenda this evening. Is there anybody at this time who would like to address the council in regards to something not on the agenda this evening? Going once, going twice? There is none. I will go to council. Is there any council announcements? I see none. We will go right into our scheduled agenda for the evening. Item number 1 has been removed from the agenda per the request of the petitioner. We will move on to item number 2, an appointment of Ann Morris to the Livonia Board of Review from the Office of the Mayor for a 3-year term, which will expire February 16th of 2023. Good evening.
Good evening.
Your name, please?
Jacob Liberati, Assistant City Assessor. Unfortunately, Ms. Morris was not able to make it here today. This was somewhat of a last-minute decision. One of our 3 board members was unable to go through with his reappointment. He couldn't commit to a 3-year term. Ms. Morris stepped up. We looked over her resume. She's worked in Livonia for many years, been a resident for a long time. She looks like a great candidate.
Okay. Can I have a motion from the council?
Mr. President,
Mr. Donovic?
I'll ask for an approving for the regular so we can give her an opportunity to come before council. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, so that'll be on regular. We do like, especially when it's somebody new, for them to come before the council. So if you can have her come on the 27th, that'd be great.
She was already out of town before this, so.
Oh, no, it happens. So thank you. Is there any audience comments on that? I see none. We'll move on to item number 3.
Have a good night.
You too. Thank you, sir. The reappointment of Laura Weingarten to the Livonia Board of Ethics from the Office of the Mayor for a 3-year term, which will expire March 1st of 2026. Mr. Bernier?
Yes, good evening. Paul Bernier, City Attorney. This is a reappointment of Laura Weingarten, should City Council should see fit. Ms. Weingarten's a longtime city resident. She's been here that I can remember at least about 30 years. She's a retired Wayne County prosecutor, and I take great pride in that. She was in the child abuse unit for like 25 years of that, which makes you a special person. She currently works at the Judicial Tenure Commission, policing bad judges, so she doesn't know anything about our 2 judges, but she polices the bad judges and goes after those folks. So she is a person of great integrity, and she's been on it before.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Toy?
And she couldn't be here. I apologize. I talked to Ms. Weingarten. She's at, I think, a seminar or a convention.
Mr. Chair, I will move approving on Ms. Weingartner. She has been a longtime resident. She has been on the Board of Review or Board of Ethics for a while, and she does a superb job, and we're lucky to have her.
Okay, is that for regular or consent?
Consent, if you so desire.
Is there an objection for consent?
Mr. President,
Mr. Donovic?
I object to that. I think it's important that people that are being appointed to commissions and boards in our community come before council to learn a little bit more about them. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any audience comment on item number 3? I see none. We'll move to 4. A waiver petition from the Planning Commission, petition 2022120222, submitted by Uptown Cheapskate, requesting a waiver use approval to operate a secondhand store and resale shop at 29508 7 Mile Road within the Livonia Marketplace Retail Center.
Are they here?
Do we have a petitioner? Welcome, ma'am. Tell me your name and address and your position with, and what you want to do. Tell me it all. Thank you.
Hello, Council. My name is Angela Moore. My address is 15462 Granville Avenue, Detroit, Michigan. And I'm looking to bring Uptown Cheapskate to Livonia. Uptown Cheapskate is a retail, resale, upscale franchise. It was founded in 2008 in Salt Lake City, Utah. We have grown to over 148 stores across the U.S. and Canada. And it's just that, it's upscale resale. So we purchase clothes from the community and we turn around and sell them at a great price. It's not donation-based, it's not a consignment shop. It is us paying you for the clothes that you don't wear anymore.
Can I take my wife's clothes there? Give me some money? Can I sneak over there with my truck full of them?
If you want to stay married, you probably would want her to do that. But yes.
We'll talk later.
With the demographics.
Mr. Donovic.
Thanks, Mr. President. So I was talking to my father, and he loves a good deal, and he heard Uptown Cheapskate, and he immediately thought, he said, maybe I can get a good deal there. So I know you'll have one customer, and I think this is really exciting. Saw some of your info at the Planning Commission meetings, and I'm pretty interested in the success of this future business here in our community. So thanks for coming here. I'd love to offer approving and consent with no objection from my colleagues.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Barr.
Just a quick comment, because every once in a while we've had over my tenure on council or planning commission, businesses similar to this come forward, and there's a number of questions that we often have with these types of things, but I just want to acknowledge that the planning commission, I thought, did a really good job of covering those questions and having reviewed those minutes. My concerns were alleviated. Other than the fact that, I mean, to this point, the name gets the point across, but kind of jarred me a little bit. I was like, but I guess that's part of the point. So, but anyway, welcome to Livonia, assuming that this goes through. So
Thank you.
Anybody else from the council? I see none. Any audience comment? I see none. You have an approving that'll be on consent. What that means is you don't have to come back to the next meeting. It's all but assured to pass, and we wish you the best.
I'll be there, but thank you.
And I'll bring all those clothes in the back of my pickup truck.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Council.
Item number 5 is a waiver petition from the Planning Commission, petition 2022120223, submitted by Individual Brewing Company, LLC, requesting a waiver use approval to operate a micro brewer license, including on-premises tasting room for the One for All Brewery at 38083 Ann Arbor Road, located on the south side of Ann Arbor Road between West Chicago and Ann Arbor Trail. Good evening, sir. Your name and address, please.
Hi, good evening. I'm Joe Walters. Address is 9262 Knowlson Street, Livonia.
Okay, tell me what's going on here.
I was the original brewer and founder of Liberty Street Brewing Company in 2008 in Plymouth, and my partner, doing retirement, we decided to sell the business and just got rid of it a little over a year ago. That frees me up to get a different license for my own project that I've been wanting to do for almost 10 years now. So the new project is going to be it's one for all, means the one person working. I'm going to make the beer, I'm going to sell the beer. It's very small. I've been through all the experiences of distribution statewide and doing all the contract packaging and stuff, and those all turned out to be bad mistakes and not profitable at all. So going back to the basics with just a small, very small tasting room, low overhead, and just make the beer and sell the beer, just keep it at where the margins are.
Sounds good. Council?
Council President?
Mr. McCullough?
Thank you. Through the chair to the petitioner, just curious, is it just beer?
Beer, I will have hard seltzer because that is technically considered a beer product. Perhaps later on I might come back to get a winery permit if possible, and do wine as well. But for now, just to stick with beer and cider.
That's awesome.
Seltzer.
No, I looking at this is a void that obviously you as a businessman know that in our city we could definitely use something like this. More beer, the better, right?
Sure.
But no, very happy that you're bringing something like this forward, and thanks for choosing Livonia or staying in Livonia. Do you have any idea when you would, if approved, when you would want to open?
I'm hoping to have the lease start March 1st, and then within 6 months by then. It's at least 3 months for licensing, but probably longer.
Sounds good. I will be happy to offer an approving for consent.
Mr. Tormina?
Thank you. The Planning Commission did recommend approval, and there were a number of conditions in the resolution dealing with the seating capacity and some other items, but one of those is the hours of operation. And discussing that with the petitioner this evening, the Planning Commission's limit of 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. was really based on the initial conversation with the petitioner. He's looking at it now, he's still going to stick with the 10 p.m. closing time, but would like the flexibility of to go till midnight. So this is something that I think he's bringing to your attention, or would like the council to consider as an amendment to the resolution adopted by the Planning Commission.
Would you like to adopt that, Mr. McCullough?
Yes, I don't see an issue. Just midnight?
Yeah, I don't foresee staying open that late ever, but if it's busy, if I'm making money, it's stupid to close, so.
Yeah. No, and the proximity in where you're at in the center is not really abutting any residential. I don't see an issue.
Anybody else from the council? Ms. Toy?
Is that 7 days a week, sir?
So my original plan is just doing the 2 to 10, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, just 4 days. If I'm not busy enough, then I might open a 5th day and possibly then open on Sundays during football, things like that, but definitely not 7.
All righty, thank you. Thank
Mr.
you,
Donovan?
Mr.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through the chair to Mr. Tormina, I know there was a lot of discussion around the dumpster enclosures. I went back there myself to look at the dumpster enclosures, and if I remember correctly, when the original rehab of the building was done, there was discussion about fixing those dumpster enclosures so that the material was consistent with the building material. Going back there, it's really some just ragtag kind of vinyl siding put together for the dumpster enclosures back there. It looks really bad, and I wanted to get a little bit more information from you on, will this resolution actually have some teeth in making sure that his landlord does that, or are we still going to just see those really flimsy vinyl dumpster enclosures? Because I know it's been consistent with me on council that the dumpster enclosures are consistent with the building material of the new building, and this one is clearly in violation. I think there's 2, if not maybe 3. I think it's 2 though, dumpster enclosures back there, and they look really bad back there. Thank you, Mr. Firmino.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and take a look. It was actually a condition of the approving of the Big B Coffee that required at least one of those dumpsters to be enclosed with masonry. So we are going back to the landlord. That's an enforcement item currently. We did, I think the Planning Commission did not want it to hold up this because we're not sure where that's going, whether it's going to involve the 1 or the 3 dumpsters, but I do know that is a pending enforcement item.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Kritzman.
Thank you. So, so with that being said, Mr. Firmina, is that something we can make that a condition of this approving if the maker of the motion would be amenable to that, to make sure that both dumpster enclosures, is that within our purview to be able to do that tonight?
I would say it is within your purview.
Okay, if I may, to the maker of the motion, if they'd be amenable to offering that?
Yes.
Brandon would be proud.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Do we have any audience comment on this matter? I see none. You had a really nice operation at Liberty Street. If you can do that here, we will be better off for it. So I wish you all the best. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Consent.
And that's for consent, correct? Okay, you don't have to come back. We'll go on to item number 6, a request to approve annual maintenance and warranty contract from sole source provider from the city clerk regarding Dominion voting systems for annual maintenance and warranty work required on all election equipment for the period January 1st, 2023 through December 31st of 2023. Sure. As outlined in the State of Michigan and Wayne County bid for election equipment from budgeted funds. Ms. Nash?
Thank you, Mr. President. When we got all our new equipment in 2017, 2023 was a long distance away, and we knew that this was going to happen. The first 5 years was covered under the contract of the warranty, and then this local municipalities would be responsible for covering this for the next however many years that we have the equipment. So this is our first year. This is year 6, so it's our first year that we have to pay this. And It's not something that you want to kind of go into with elections and not have our equipment covered, that if we have problems, that they won't come out and fix it.
Okay. Any motions from the council?
I'll be approval on consent, if I may.
Okay, we have an approval on consent.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Barr?
No objection. I just have one question for the clerk. Susie, is this, you talked about how this was signed 5 years ago, and this is the first year that, everything that you just said there, I won't try to repeat it, but I understand what you said. Were these prices and everything that was shared with us, is that something that was part of that contract that was signed 5 years ago? It's just now it's just kicking in? And we're just doing,
So this is something that was covered, the first 5 years were covered with the county, the state, I'm not exactly sure who was covering it.
So you'll be back next year and the year after for the
Yes,
next 5 years
and
doing the same thing?
Next year will actually be a little higher, just to give a warning, because this is for equipment that we're going into year 6 with. And if you remember, we did purchase a couple items after the initial, so those will be year 6 next year.
Okay, thanks.
So it'll be just a little bit of an adjustment.
We have an approving on consent. Is there any audience comment? I see none. We'll move on to 7. An award of bid from the Livonia Fire and Rescue for replacement of ballistic vests and helmets that are currently at end of life from budgeted funds. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, President, council members. The fire department is requesting an approving resolution to award a contract bid to CMP Distributors in Lansing for the purchase of ballistic vests and helmets to replace our expired PPE from budgeted funds. An RFP was placed on Mitten. We received 2 responses, one from CMP and one from Galls. We're requesting to proceed with the higher bid by $236. Because it's a local company, we've used them before. Due to the warranty, we may be having to send things back and forth, and shipping them to Lansing is a lot cheaper than shipping them across the country.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Barr, oh, sorry. he beat
Go
you.
ahead. Go ahead.
I was just, having reviewed what was given to us, it's from budgeted funds. I was going to offer approving for consent, if there's no objection.
Okay. Any objection? Ms. Toy, would you like to speak?
No, it's fine.
Okay. We have a consent on 7. Is there any public comment on that matter? I see none. We'll move on to 8. A request for authorization to purchase one 2023 Ford F250 4x4 crew cab battalion chief command vehicle from the Livonia Fire and from Livonia Fire Department to replace the current command vehicle from budgeted funds. Chief?
Thank you, President. Yes, we're requesting an approving resolution to waive the formal bid process and purchase a 2023 Ford F250 4x4 crew cab from Gorno Ford from budgeted funds. This purchase being made through the 2023 State of Michigan My Deal Extended Purchasing Program and meets the purchasing order. This unit will replace the frontline battalion chief command vehicle at Station 1. That vehicle will be moved into reserve status. We no longer have a reserve. Our 2008 Yukon battalion chief unit with over 100,000 miles was traded in last month with another purchase from the prior year.
Sounds good. Ms. Toy?
Yes, approving and consent.
Thank you. Any public comment on 8?
Mr. Chair. Just one more question, if I may.
Art, go ahead.
Since in the spirit of a study session. Chief, just curious, when we get vehicle requests like this, and I think we have another one, I know we have another one later tonight, do you by chance know what the mileage is on the vehicles that we're replacing?
So the current battalion chief vehicle is a 2018, has about 35,000 miles on it. We're moving that one into the reserve status because we don't have one. The battalion chief vehicle that was taken out of service and sold last month had 100,000 miles on it. It was a 2008.
So this is really replacing, in effect, that reserve vehicle
Yes.
more than anything? Okay.
And then we'll be moving the 2018 into reserve status. When there's maintenance on the current vehicle, we'll be able to move a fully equipped unit in its place during maintenance. And if we have any large scale incidents or multiple incidents, having 2 battalion chief vehicles is the proper thing to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further questions? Okay, any public comment on that? I see none. That's on consent, approving. Item 9 is a request to amend Council Resolution 2323 from the Civil Service Department for the adjustment and compensation structure for the Deputy City Clerk and Deputy City Treasurer. Good evening, Ms. Leibel.
Good evening. We had it wasn't a typo, but kind of a misunderstanding relative to some of the language that was in the original resolution. In discussing it internally, we decided that We believe that the deputies were entitled to not just the one bump, which was to increase their wage to make them more competitive, but also to get the December 1st increase that all the rest of the city employees got. So we didn't want that December 1st increase to not occur. And that way it was able to keep them, we were able to keep them in with the spirit of the first raise that we gave them.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Toy.
I think this is an order, and I'm going to ask for an approving, if I may.
Okay, Mr. Donovic?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Ms. Livo, for being here tonight. It's always a pleasure. With that being said, those two positions, are they going to have to be paid backdated pay then, or how does that work?
I don't believe that they are entitled to back pay, but I can confirm and update you tomorrow.
That's right, that's right. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Phone a friend.
Is there an objection for that being on consent?
No, Mr. Chair, no objection. I'll just say I believe I read that it is retroactive to December 1st, just for the information of the council, and to ask answer Mr. Donovic's question.
Yeah. Mr. Slater, do you know the answer to that question by any chance? It is. Okay, so we got the clarity there. Is there any public comments on item number 9? I see none. That'll be on consent, approving. Item 10 is a request to accept a quotation for life insurance and accidental death and dismemberment insurance from the Department of Finance from One America for a period of March 1, 2023 through February 28 of 2025. Good evening, Mr. Slater.
Good evening, council. I'll just note that there is a typo on the agenda description, as our recommendation is going to be for Sun Life to be the company that we recommend for renewal. One America was the former provider of life insurance and accident and dismemberment insurance. The quote from Sun Life was the lowest solicited, and the total cost is approximately $179,000 a year. This is for 3 years, and it is 5% lower than the rate that we're currently paying. So we'd recommend Sun Life be our provider for the next 3 years.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion on that?
So moved.
We have an approving from Toy. Is there anybody else who wants to comment? Is there any audience comments on item number 10? I see none. Is that for consent?
If you want that.
We'll
go
put it on
right ahead.
consent if there's no objection. Item 11 is a request to approve specialized services operating assistance program from through a third-party contract for a period of October 1, 2022 to September 30th of 2023 between the City of Livonia and SMART, from the Livonia Housing Commission, regarding grant funds to be used for the Livonia Community Transit Program to provide lift equipment transportation for senior and disabled residents of the city. Good evening.
Yes, that's a mouthful. Yes, I'm here to ask for approval of the contract between SMART and the City of Livonia regarding the specialized services. This is an annual contract that comes up every year, and this time the amount is for $29,921 that helps our program in providing services to the disabled and the seniors.
Thank you, ma'am. Any motions from the council?
Yeah.
Ms.
I have
McIntyre?
a question.
Go ahead.
Hi, Felicia.
Hi.
Very nice to see you. I know that we are having an issue with securing enough drivers, and we have put that into committee. And I know this is grant money, but do we, are we able to operate all of our buses that have the adaptive lifts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. I would offer a motion to approve on consent.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Toy?
I just wanted to say thank you for continuing this program. You know we have to have it, but it's just so valuable to those folks that really can't move right and those seniors that really need that help. And it's so valued over these many years. Thank you very much for continuing it.
Well, thank you.
Okay. If there's no objection from council, that'll be on consent. Is there any comment from the audience on that? I see none. Item 12 is a request to approve an annual renewal of software licensing and maintenance from the sole source provider coming to us from Public Works Division regarding Azteca Systems LLC for the DPW work management system for period March 1, 2023 through February 29 of 2024. It's a leap year, huh?
Yes.
Includes CityWorks Online from budgeted funds. Mr. Moore.
Good evening, Council. Doug Moore with the Department of Public Works. This is our annual request to fund CityWorks, our asset management program. Tracks inventory, service requests, work orders, you name it, it pretty much does everything. The cost is $92,382. It is budgeted, and it's taken equally from refuse and water and sewer.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barr?
Just one question, Doug. The taken from water and sewer and then the refuse, why just those two funds as opposed to general DPW funds?
Most of the complaints that come in can be attached to those two areas. We get a lot of animal control calls, a lot of tree trimming, brush pickup, and then the water calls, meter, sewer. Out of everything, maybe 10, 15% would be general fund, and then less would be major and local.
Okay, thanks.
Do I have a motion?
I'd like to offer an approving on consent, please.
Thank you. Any public comment? I see none. We'll move on to 13. A request for authorization to waive the sealed bid process and purchase 3 2023 Ford F250 pickup trucks through the State of Michigan and Macomb County Bid Consortium. Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Council. These are budgeted funds. The trucks will be used in roads and parks. We are replacing 3 units that are 2010 to 2012 era. Councilman Barr's question earlier, with us, it's not so much about mileage as it is about what the trucks do. They plow snow, they tow trailers, they have tendency to idle, which we try to not let happen, but it does. So they get a lot of use. The total cost for the 3 for the purchase of the trucks and the upfitting is $199,053.
Thank you, Council.
Move approving.
I'll offer an approving
Go
for
ahead.
consent.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
Let's see.
Is there any public comment on that? I see none. That'll be on consent. Item 14, a request for authorization to waive the sealed bid process and purchase 2 trailer-mounted leaf vacuums through the Michigan Deal State Bid process from the Public Works Division to replace 2 current units from budgeted funds. Mr. Moore?
It's never too early to talk about leaf pickup. We are looking to replace 2 leaf suckers. The 2 that are being replaced will be moved to backup. We purchased 2 last year. Those 2 old ones will be sent for auction. And I can't find my paperwork to tell you how much they cost. So $140,185 for the 2 of them from the refuse fund.
Council?
Approval for consent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comments? I see none. Item 15 is a request for authorization to purchase capital planning.
I'm sorry, I didn't know Mr. Moore wasn't going to handle this. May I, please, before Mr. Moore leaves the
Of course.
podium?
I want to say something to him, too.
Back, so
Doug-
I'll be back for the next one.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to say, as you know, as many people know, I mentioned some things at the beginning of the regular meeting. There was a small water main break in my area sometime overnight on Saturday night, and I got the call at 5:30 in the morning from a neighbor, and I called it in per procedure to the emergency, after hours emergency number, which is the police non-emergency number. And because I'm on the board of the homeowners association, I just kept getting a lot of calls. And as you know, I sent a text out to a number of people yesterday morning. I didn't want to bother the mayor, Dave Varga, at 8:30 on a Sunday morning, so I just sent a text to ask if there was an update. And I just want to thank you, as always. And I mentioned DPW. I also want to thank the engineering department. You guys are always on top of things, and not just, you know, it's not just favors, right? You're not responsive to council members. You guys just do an amazing job.
Thank you.
And, you know, the ability to always know, and thank you. I don't know who the foreman was, but, you know, people take for granted in a city the things that they never have to think about until something goes wrong, right? And most of that falls under the jurisdiction of these two departments. And I mean, certainly public safety, right? But public safety is visible. You know when you get a ticket, right? Or you know when you see the ambulance come. But roads and water and trash pickup are the things that people never ever think about until something goes wrong. And in this city, you guys are not usually in the forefront because things rarely go wrong. So again, just thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.
So item 15.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is a request for authorization to purchase capital planning software licensing and maintenance through the Sourcewell purchasing agreement from DPW for strategic capital planning and building facility improvement projects from budgeted funds. Sir?
Good evening. Thank you. Jacob Rushlow, Assistant Director of Public Works, and Doug's let me fill in and take this one on, and then we'll get him right back up here for the next one. Essentially, with our efforts to implement a comprehensive facility asset management system, we recognize the need for some capital planning software to support with the process of managing, tracking, and planning for large capital projects. The goal here is to develop really an actionable long-term capital investment plan for our facilities that consider condition assessments like we just had done with Plant Moran Cressa, our financial resources, life cycle cost models, and operational perspectives. Building portfolios will be created in a multi-year capital plan developed using this Gordian software. Gordian's proposal includes a core system assessment of our building models, some data mitigation from work that we've already done into their system, and then a first-year subscription to their software package. The price is offered in accordance with a Sourcewell contract, which includes a 10% discount rate here for the city. So it's our recommendation through the department that council proceed to approve the expenditure, which is from budgeted funds for the data mitigation, development of building models, and software licensing with Gordian in the amount of $31,320, and authorize that payment to them. And then also authorize the purchase without competitive bidding, in as much as the same is being purchased through the Sourcewell contract. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Mr. McCullough.
Thank you, Council President. No, this packet, Mr. Rushell, this is great. It pairs completely with the Plant Moran Cressa, and I even looked through it. It's got a 10-year capital CIP plan that is going to pop out. So from a funding perspective, I think this might cause Mr. Slater to freak out over the course of the next 10 years, but it is definitely needed to provide those analytics. So kudos. I'd be happy to offer an approving for consent.
Okay. Any public comments? I see none. We have an approving on consent for 15, excuse me. We'll move to 16. A request for authorization to purchase one WHIZ robotic vacuum cleaner set with attachments through the National Intergovernmental Purchasing Alliance from the Department of Public Works for use by the Building Maintenance Department from budgeted funds. Mr. Moore.
Good evening again, Council. Essentially, the robot vacuum is approved in capital budget. Essentially, it's a large Roomba, except it's smarter. I don't know if any of you have them. Ours has tendency to run in the same spot for 48 out of 50 minutes and then goes and docks if it can find the dock. This won't. It's smart. The size of it is, if I did my conversion from millimeters correctly, it's about 2.5 by 2.5 by 2.5. The operator will go through the first time or two and run it in a room and allow the computer and the vacuum to learn what it's got to do, and then it's on its own after that. It will be in buildings where there are custodians. It will run while the custodian is doing other work. So it allows the custodian to focus on cleaning other things rather than running the vacuum also. And it does, we are going to move it other floors, other buildings, and see how it works out. It's being purchased, it's a governmental bid purchase, and the cost is $31,954.42.
Mr. President.
Mr. Donovic.
Thank you, Mr. President. I never thought I'd be voting for a $31,000 vacuum, but it looks like it. I actually saw one of these in action at Menards, and it really scared me because I was sitting in the aisle, and all of a sudden this robot turned the corner and was looking at me, and it kept on going, and then it stopped.
The red light was blinking.
No comment.
Yeah, and I had seen the movie I, Robot with Will Smith prior to that, and I thought something bad was about to happen. But long story short, it looked like it was doing a really good job. And it's funny that you mentioned that it will be present while other custodial staff is working. And it seems like they may be the market and the standard, because there happen to be custodial people doing their job while this vacuum robot was doing its job. So pretty interesting to see how AI is being utilized, and I'd love to offer an approving consent. There's no objection from my colleagues.
Mr. McCullough.
Just a 2 second. So forgive me on a few of the items because I was stuttering because I pulled up the video of this thing. And if anybody hasn't seen the video, look it up because it is pretty wild. The only thing that we would like to know is what you guys end up naming it, because I'm sure it's going to have many names.
Depends how well it does.
Doug.
How's that?
Okay, do we have public comments? I don't see any. We have an approving for consent.
Thank
Mr. Moore,
you.
this doesn't count as a pre-Valentine's date or anything, does it?
The board wanted to come. It's all on her, not me. Have a good night, council. Thank you.
You too. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
May I just add, it is always a joy to see Leah, a.k.a. Mrs. Moore, in the audience, and I've suggested that we add to the, fun and ambiance at our council meetings, that we get a kiss cam like they have at Tiger Stadium and the other entertainment venues. So I may be putting that in committee at a future date.
Hey, McCullough, go turn that one around. Number 17 is a request to approve an intergovernment agreement between the Charter County of Wayne and the City of Livonia from the Engineering Division for the improvement of Farmington Road from Orange Lawn to Plymouth, with the city's participation estimated to be at 9.075% in the amount of $118,936 from budgeted funds. Good evening, Mr. Zielinski.
Thank you, Council President, Council members. I know it's a tough act to follow with the WHIZ robotic cleaner, but I'll see what I can do here. Wayne County provided us with the EIJ in January. As you know, the road was started back in September and completed in December with a few punch list items. It's been widened on Farmington Road, so it's nice now to have 2 lanes there of people heading northbound on Farmington Road to turn on to eastbound Plymouth, and some of the radiuses have been widened there with the brick pavers. But Wayne County, again, this is a bit of a, typically would send it prior to the project, whatever, but obviously there've been some changes there. So we're looking for city council approval in the amount of $118,936, in which they request 50% of the total cost sharing to be sent to them. And if any further questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Thank you.
Morgan.
For approving for consent.
Thank you. Any public comments on that? I see none. We have an approving for consent. Item 18 is a request to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the County of Wayne and the City of Livonia from engineering for the improvement of Merriman Road from Schoolcraft to 5 Mile Road, with the proposed city's participation to be 9.075% in the amount of $182,912 from budgeted funds. Mr. Zielinski.
Again, similar to the previous item, the Wayne County folks got federal aid money, which the government pays 81.85%. We split the cost of the remaining 18%. As you know, it started back in June, was completed in late September, early October, and we're just, again, paying our fair share of the proposed intergovernmental agreement that Wayne County provided to us back in January. and looking for your authorization to pay $182,912, of which we send a $50,000 or 50% check to them for that project. Thank you.
I'd like to offer an approving on consent if there are no objections from my colleagues.
Okay, any public comment? I see none. We'll move on to 19. A request to extend the contract with Michigan Joint Sealing, Inc. from engineering for the 2023 Joint and Crack Sealing Program, Contract 23D, at the unit prices from 2021 from budgeted funds. Mr. Zielinski?
Yes, as this was bid out back in 2021, there was a 2-year extension allowed if the contractor performed satisfactory. So again, last year we did $250,000 worth of joint sealing on our asphalt and concrete roads to help prolong that pavement life. Typically, after 3 years of a new asphalt road, we try to get those joints sealed so it prevents the water in there. We're asking for your approval again for $250,000 to do major and local roads with Michigan Joint, as there's only 2 or 3 companies that do this type of work. And again, it'll be bid out in 2024 for future work, potentially with, again, a 2-year extension. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McIntyre?
I'd like to offer an approving on consent if there are no objections.
Okay, any public comment? I see none. We'll move on to 20, a request to amend the engineering contract through the qualification-based selection QBS process with OHM Advisors for design engineering services for the 2023 water main replacement project from engineering. Mr. Zielinski?
Yes, as you know, previously, council has helped us out significantly in improving our water infrastructure through the DWARF program, drinking water revolving state funds, in which we get a low-interest loan of 2%. We did that in 2020. We did that in 2021. And unfortunately, we were not selected because we were too far down on the priority list, as 83 communities above us were selected, or, you know, we're too far down the list. So instead, we're trying to utilize existing funds that are in the budget. Before, back in 2008, we did a $5 million bond, but again, we want to continue on with the projects that were in order that we would have did for DWARF, but again, we are looking to have OHM help design those locations. If you look at the areas, there's approximately 3 miles of water main. They are located at Bell Creek and Bloomfield Street replacement at Farmington and 6 Mile. We have another one at Merriman and 6 Mile. If people were aware, last fall we had a break on the east side of 6 Mile, just at Merriman. We did some improvements back when they did the right turn lanes there. So obviously either side of that's starting to be compromised. Bell Creek Estates subdivision replacement in section 15. We're looking to do that along with Greenland. So those locations, along with Farmington Road from Bates going north to the creek, we're looking to improve those at a cost of $6,083,000. And then they're projects 7A, 7B, 8A, 8B, and 9B. So we're looking for your assistance to have OHM provide those existing water main improvements in the amount, I believe it was for $365,000. Again, we're going to try to do it this summer and complete it in the spring of 2024, and then continue on with improving other areas that are noted for water main issues. We do have Jessica Caters here at OHM if there's any questions, but she'll be on the team again. She's helped us through the previous DWARF projects, and her team will lead the design and approval through Eagle, and then we'll obviously bid out the projects, bring it to City Council for your approval, and obviously hope to get the best unit prices we can to do that work, as we have good qualified contractors that have previously done the work in the city. Thank you.
Ms. Caters, anything to add?
I have no more additional comments. Todd has it well summarized, but I am available if you have any questions.
Mr. President.
Mr. Donovic.
Through you to Mr. Zielinski, our city engineer. OHM does a phenomenal job. I think this is definitely the right contractor to handle this initial phase of all this. My question is the construction cost for this project is estimated at $6,083,000. When you talk about trying to get this all done between, you know, this summer and next year, is that what you're referring to, is $6 million worth of work you want to get done in the next year and a half, or?
That is correct.
And where would that money come from? Is that from grants, general fund budgets?
It'll come from the 592 Water and Sewer Fund. So I believe the finance director and DPW director have talked, and that there's sufficient funds in there. Obviously, we'll have a potential look at they're working on the rates that'll come out from GLWA. So depending on that, I think Last time we had like a small amount, 2% from last year. I'm not sure exactly what, if any, rate will come out. But again, just trying to help keep the miles of water main that we have maintain whatever. As you know, I think we did several miles back in 2020 and 21, and obviously continue to try to keep up on these areas that have broken. If you look down at Farmington Road, it's hit twice, and then again recently after it was resurfaced, whatever. So we want to make sure that get addressed in locations on Merriman that are causing, again, we want to save money on redoing the roads.
And then do you anticipate after this $6 million of the work is done that we're going to get another $6 million in work done next year, or?
Well, I would assume that we probably continue on with areas 10, 11, 12, which may be $5 million or $3 million. We won't know that, obviously, but we'll continue on to look at ways to make sure that we stay ahead of the game as best we can and what funding's available, as we don't know the future. But again, I would assume the $3 to $5 million if in the future for 2024. Now, we are hopeful for some dwarf funding if that comes about in 24. We always seek the grants or special funding if we can. But again, we finally have to take a step backwards and say, let's do this. The good thing about this is we don't have to pay Davis-Bacon rates. We'll probably get a little bit of discount because it'll be local contractors. So there is a savings there on that portion on the prevailing wages.
Well, thank you to the engineering department for all the work you do, making sure we have clean water in Livonia. Thank you, Mr. President.
Do you have a motion, Mr. Donovic?
I'll make an approving on consent if there's no objection from my colleague.
Any public comments? I see none. Thank you, Ms. Caters. And item 21 is a request to waive the formal bid process and approve the proposed 2023 sidewalk repair program by extending contract 22G unit prices with Joe Rotondo Construction Corporation and request for additional appropriation and expenditure from the Engineering Division for contract 23G, which includes 422 scattered locations through the city, as well as 128 locations in section 1 through 6. Mr. Zolensek?
Yes, as you're aware, we take pride in fixing our sidewalks in the city. We just recently passed a millage, thanks to all the residents and city council support, to continue on for another 10 years for this renewal millage. Again, we look forward to replacing our roads and our sidewalks that are damaged by trees and/or areas that are deficient, that we make sure that residents and/or property owners can fix. In this case, we looked at reviewing sections 1 through 6 to try to identify 2-inch vertical separations or larger, and we have 128 locations in those areas. In addition, we have 422 locations that were called in throughout the residence, so we want to make sure these areas are fixed. Rotondo Construction bid out the project last year. They were the lowest qualified bidder. We are asking the city council's approval to waive the bidding formal process to allow their unit prices with a small increase on several items, obviously due to cost of the material of concrete. As we all know, there's a shortage last fall, and we're concerned that there may be another shortage in the fall again of this year. So the goal would be to have Rotondo complete all the sidewalk repairs starting in late April, early May. The residents would be notified if it's approved through an estimate sent out April 3rd. Then the deadline to notify the engineering department would be May 5th. They could still continue on with their work, but we would work with Rotondo to then come through the city, start in probably the south end of town, and work their way north for the next 2 to 3 months to complete those repairs and hopefully have them done by early September, mid-August. But again, the reason why we're bringing this to you is there was already a bid in Royal Oak with the same amount of square footage that came in. The lowest bidder was $8 a square foot. And we only believe that it's going to get worse as we move forward. And again, we've always tried to get our projects out for bids early and get these things approved so that way people can plan accordingly, because concrete obviously is not cheap. It's about $220 a square, which is 5 by 5. So looking with your assistance, we would like to continue on because Rotondo's done this over several years. They've done a great job. And again, they do qualities for our ADA ramps. And we do have Mark Rotondo from Rotondo Construction Company in the audience if there's any specific questions. But again, we always look forward to fixing these trip hazards, these AD ramps, to make them accessible for our handicapped and visually impaired folks throughout the city. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Vice President Toy.
Mr. Chair, Rotondo has been stated, has done this work for an awful long time and does just outstanding. And looks like he's passing it down through the family now, so we're real excited about that. So I would like to offer an approving, and at your pleasure if it's on consent or whatever.
Any public comments? I Ms.
Oh,
McIntyre?
I know, I'm not public, I'm counsel. But once again, I'd just like to say it's always appreciated. This meeting didn't go as unbearably late as some do, but I always appreciate it that that the people that do business with the city always send senior representatives, even for, I know this is a extension of a contract, but even for routine matters. We always have the representatives here, and they're always senior people from the organizations, and that's always appreciated, so thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So we have no public comments. We have an approving for consent. That concludes the agenda. Is there any closing audience communication on something that is not on the agenda?
Mr. Chair.
Come on up, sir.
Seriously. And then I just wanted to
Sure.
say something.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Mark Schneider. I'm at 32560 Curtis. And I'm here, you may have heard a little contentious meeting with Parks and Recs regarding the Rotary bike path. To sum it up, because a lot of my colleagues aren't here anymore, are here. I could sum it up in 3 areas that they were concerned with. One was that the widening of the, well, first off, where I live is on Curtis, the west side. So that's where, west of the entrance to the park, and Fairfield and Curtis area. And what was come up is when they widen this area that you walk into right now, instead of it being just a path, it now is going to be a 12-foot opening. 8 feet wide, 2 feet on this side, 2 feet on that side, making it 12 feet. And as for, we were told, biking, safety and stuff like that, and that's fine from that standpoint. What we looked at is we thought now this becomes an entranceway, a very visible entranceway, that now people will be parking on Curtis where there is no parking. Okay, there's just a street and a corner, if anyone's familiar with that, and it turns. And we're worried about that, the kids, et cetera, number one. We can deal with Parks and Recs. We also brought up an issue with, it's not a straight path where you can see, they're gonna follow the path. Well, what happens as a biker's flying by, this is a place where kids are walking, or their parents are taking children, and they let the kids go, and they're in front of them, and all of a sudden you don't have the clearance or the sight lines that you would have on a clear path. And the third thing that came up was my understanding, or just trying to get knowledge of how Rotary Park was developed. Was it a grant, or was it purchased by the city? Because I don't know if there's any deed restrictions that when it was granted, that deed restriction would carry on forever. So it could only be a park or a park land, as opposed to, if the city purchased it, then they can redefine what natural walkways are all about. But we were just looking at that, and we're concerned about those 3 areas, if I summarize it all up. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Okay, is there any closing comment from the council, Ms. McIntyre?
Yeah, just a very troubling piece of information. There's an active shooter situation at Michigan State University. That's why I stepped out. My son is thankfully fine, and but the shooter is still at large, and there are victims, I believe. And again, you know, it's hard to sort everything out, but what's known as the shooters are still at large, and there are multiple reports that there are victims, including fatalities. So if we could all just keep a good thought and a prayer this evening for anyone at Michigan State that's been in harm's way or will continue to be, and also prayer for the law enforcement that are now tasked with finding the person who's done this. So I'm sorry to close the meeting with that, but
would you like to take a moment of silence?
We could take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. And, you know, none of the circumstances are known, but, you know, we'll just reiterate, if you know anyone who's troubled if you know anyone who you have any concerns about, and I'm not suggesting you call police because you have a friend who's depressed, but as it turns out, oftentimes in these situations, not always, there are signs that somebody is unstable and has the capacity to do this. So, you know, we're all powerless in these terrible situations, but thank you to everybody who's been checking in, and Clerk Nash's son is there as well, and he's also safe, and but just a tragedy, and you really feel it when it hits home in your state. And even if you don't have kids there, many of us are graduates there, or know kids who are. So thank you, President Jolly.
Thank you, Ms. McIntyre. With that being said, we will adjourn tonight's meeting and send our best wishes and prayers to Michigan State. Thank you.